Hi, thanks for tuning in. This is the ASX and Sectors weekly chart analysis for the week ending 16th of January 2026. The first chart is the S&P ASX 200 index, the XJO. This is the parent index of the Australian Stock Exchange. You can see the market closed higher this week. Here's the highs of the range. This was the lows of the original range where price broke down from. There was a reversal through here. Price spent some time in consolidation mode, then pushed higher. And after another 2 weeks of consolidation, prices pushed higher again this week and right into the range previously. This congestion to the left is likely to hold some resistance, but the way the market pushed up this week suggests that over the past few weeks through here, a lot of the potential resistance has already been absorbed. And that's what all this effort was for down here. Price pushed higher this week. Volume increased to about average. We're almost back to normal volumes after the holiday period. I expect they'll normalise next week. This was a good strong move. Price is standing up tall and proud with the close up high on the bar. I expect in response a little period of consolidation similar to these two bars in here. You'll get something like this, especially early next week. You'll get a bar, something like that. And then a positive response if supply is found to be low. The mid-cap sector, it's very similar to the parent index. It's been acting a little stronger than the parent for some time. It really didn't break down here like the parent index did, which was mostly due to the financial sector. So really this market just moved sideways for a period. You can see that price has pushed out this week in a similar fashion to the parent index. Volume increased to about average in this market as well. And same goes here. I expect a brief and shallow period of consolidation in response, and then a continued push higher if trading conditions remain favourable and supply is found to be low. The small ordinary sector really accelerated higher last week and continued higher again this week. Here's your period of consolidation after the reversal, same as the parent index. There's a push higher last week, and this week there was no test for supply. Price just continued higher on average volume, and price did push higher with relative ease. The financial sector has been holding back the parent index somewhat more recently. Here's the highs of the range. This is where price broke down from. There was a period of consolidation. If you drag this line through here, you can see that it's held back the market here. Price has pulled back, and it's attempting to reverse here. It's an incomplete reversal until it closes above and clearly above the down bar's high. And at this stage, price is just trading within that down bar's range. So we'll just wait and see if it does complete. It does appear to be going through the necessary steps of absorbing supply, and then there'll possibly be an attempt to push back above that breakdown line and trade adjacent to this congestion to the left. This is the metals and mining subsector. This market continues to move higher. There was a trading range formed in here. Price broke out of that. It's been moving higher quite steadily and quite logically for some time. There wasn't really a test for supply below the previous bar's close this week. I mean, it was tiny. There's a little tiny one there, but really the market just got going early in the week and pushed higher for most of the week. It closed slightly off the week's high does suggest that a little supply was drawn out. It doesn't look particularly ominous or serious. Volume increased slightly to the average line, and I expect that will normalise again next week. This market's looking pretty strong at the moment. This is the gold sector. Price pushed higher this week in a similar fashion. The market's been trading quite consistently, moving higher and then consolidating in repeating waves, which is exactly what you expect the market to do. The prices again pushed above the previous highs this week. Volume increased to about the average. So this was a good push higher. I would expect a consolidation bar in response, similar to these bars. So you'll get something like this next week, especially early in the week. And you may get a response later in the week, a positive one, if supply is found to be low. This is the energy sector. It's pretty much trading sideways more recently. Highs of the range, breakdown line, breakdown, a reluctance to move lower, a modest recovery. You can see if you drag that line across, the market was not strong enough to recover above this breakdown line. And in response, after a little sideways trading, price pushed down again and tested the previous lows. You've had a little period of consolidation, and this week price has just pushed above this minor breakdown line here, back into the little range above. It's modestly positive. It's not strongly positive. It was almost a mid-bar close this week, and volume increased to about the average. So this market's really moving sideways. It's not showing any great intent. The weakness it had been showing has sort of been shrugged off more recently, but it's still not showing a great deal of positive intent. It's really moving sideways overall. This is the ASX healthcare sector, which has had some fits and starts recently. It looked like it was accumulating a couple of times and has failed. This time's looking more positive. Here's the breakdown line from previous. You'll notice that the thrust lower has shortened somewhat, and the recent sideways trading in consolidation, similar to what's happened over here, is happening again. We had a shakeout sort of bar last week and an up bar in response. So that's suggesting that it is quite positive. And trading is remaining above this down bar's low for the most part. You had this little shakeout, dip lower. It was a rejection of moving lower. Price recovered and had an up bar this week. So it does look like the market's once again attempting to consolidate and perhaps accumulate. But we've seen it before, so we won't jump in too quickly. We'll just watch and see how this market continues to respond. This is the ASX industrial sector. It's spent quite some time moving sideways now. We noted supply was drawn out here, and since then the market's shown an inability to easily move higher, where previously it was easily able to move higher. It pushed up here. It did look like it was off again, but we've had supply drawn out a couple of times at this level. The lows of the range have been tested, and the market is attempting to consolidate again over the last 2 months. Price is up right at the important level here now. So we need to see what's going to happen here. This is where the market's found supply drawn out previously. The current price action does suggest there'll be an attempt to push higher. It may be that the market does test for supply first, or at least early in the week, and you'll get something like this in the first couple of days, and then an attempt to push higher if supply is found to be low. We need to watch what's going to happen up here because supply has been drawn out at this level previously. This is the consumer staples sector. The price moved higher this week in response to this shakeout sort of bar. Here's the lows of the range, the highs of the range. This is the range above where there's been resistance shown. You can see that price did a shakeout sort of bar last week. In response to that, you'll either see an up bar or a secondary test for supply, generally with a narrower spread and reduced volume. The market didn't test for supply at all. It just pushed higher this week in response, and it's closed pretty much at the highs of the range. So we'll see how this market contends with that. Generally, when this happens, you'll expect a test for supply early and then a response depending on how much supply is drawn out. So if it pulls back slightly and supply is low, there'll probably be an attempt to break out above this highs of the range level. But that remains to be seen at this point in time, because this market's traded sideways for an extended period. This is consumer discretionary. Lows of the range through here. We did see the market attempting to establish lows through there, and they've been fine-tuned to some extent. Back up here was where the market broke down from originally. Here was the breakdown. This was an inability to recover. There was a secondary breakdown. A reluctance to move lower through here, and since then we've had a period of consolidation sideways where the market's really attempting to absorb supply, is possibly in accumulation mode, and this week the market has pushed a little higher and closed above this bar's high. It's not a clear breakout. It may prove to be an attempt to break out, or it may just prove to be part of an overall period of consolidation or accumulation. So we'll just keep an eye on this one. It's looking a little more positive than it has been more recently, but it's certainly not ready to go just yet. This is the ASX property sector. It also closed higher this week, albeit modestly. The market's been establishing lows down here after breaking down previously. Highs of the range through here. This looked like it was going to move higher from here. We had this weakness emerge, which was neutralised to some extent by this shakeout or test for supply bar. Price moved sideways. It did break down, but we saw an attempt to support the market pretty quickly, and price has been trading in consolidation mode pretty much ever since. The last 3 weeks trading have been within the range of this up bar. You've had 2 weeks of consolidation, then a push higher in response last week. I would expect this market to make an attempt to push up to this breakdown line next week. Probably close right at it or very slightly above it. I'm not really expecting a strong breakout bar next week. I think this market will push up to this level and then test for supply at the level. Just back to the parent index quickly. Put those lines in. Highs of the range, lows of the range, breakdown, reversal, period of consolidation, right up high in the range. That was good, strong movement. Secondary period of consolidation, right up high in this bar's range. And this week the market's pushed higher again. This is a good move. It's pretty logical. Price is up alongside this congestion to the left. I would expect a test for supply at least early in the week. and then a response depending on how much supply is drawn out. And I expect it'll probably be a positive response, possibly up to this level if trading conditions are found to be favourable. If trading conditions soften, you'll probably see the market come back to this level. Okay, thanks for your time. Back again next week. See ya.